So again, this week we're going to keep on going with our one-to-ones and some of the barriers to one-to-ones that I've heard people tell me as they're doing their one-to-ones. So who in the room has had a bad one-to-one? Who's had a one-to-one that you've thought, oh God, that was painful, I'll never get that hour back? Who have there been people that you've avoided doing one-to-ones with because it was painful? Yeah, hopefully I'm not on anybody's list, but I've been there. I know you guys have been there. If you didn't raise your hand, you're either not doing one-to-ones or you're lying about it. So let's talk about some of the barriers. Or first, kind of to recap here, is what is one-to-ones and why are they important? So one-to-ones are getting together with one or two other people in your group, just getting to know each other and learning about them so you can build that trust with each other. But some helpful things are structure your meeting, have a plan before you go into it, talk about a little bit of business and a little bit of social. That way you get two things coming in there and you learn more about the person than just their business. And the bottom line, it's all about building trust. You have to build that trust so when you pass that referral, you give a little piece of yourself, you know it's going to be well taken care of. So some of the common complaints that I hear are, it never ends. Some people just don't know how to end a one-to-one, and they don't respect my time. But we just don't have anything to talk about. I've never connected with that person. I just can't do it. It wasn't productive. It didn't feel like a one-to-one. Or I just don't have the time for it. I hear about these fairly frequently. So let's start with it never ends. How do we deal with the person that just doesn't stop talking and won't respect your time? So first, if you think that's you, respect the person's time. If you go in and it's an hour and a half into your meeting and you've been the one talking a lot, you might want to step back a little bit and say, hey, I know we've been here a while. Are you okay with this? And just be aware of who you are and what your tendencies are. So if you're on the other side of this, you can tell them, hey, I need to go. We had an hour planned here, and I've got other things I need to take care of. This is all about business, so don't be afraid to tell someone what's going on and to be honest and upfront with them. They'll respect you more for it, because along this, tell them you need to go. I was listening to a podcast last week, and it was all about building trust. And the thing about it was, the thing that stuck out was, to build trust requires friction in that relationship. So if you're always having good, happy times with that person, you don't know what's going to happen when something goes wrong. So you have to have that friction in a relationship to know what's going to go, or how that person is going to react. And if you're honest and upfront and can tell them you need to go, you know how they're going to react when you send a referral that doesn't go all that well. And then finally, as a last resort, plan another meeting afterwards. Say, you've got another meeting to go to, we've got to be done at this time. I've met with a lot of people, and maybe it's just me, but they have other meetings planned afterwards. So plan something to where you have to be gone. So if it never ends, here's some ideas to deal with that. So we don't have anything to talk about. This is one that it's always a struggle. Me as a natural introvert, put me in a one-on-one situation, I don't have anything to talk about. Put me in front of an audience, I'm good, I can talk for hours. But the gains exchange, this is what BNI pushes, suggests we use it. I think it's great for early one-on-ones to really get to know people because it sets up a format to get some questions out there that you can answer. Once you get to know people better, it's not quite so good. If I sat down with some of the people who've been in here for years and we went through the gains exchange, I could probably answer it for them. So, but this is a great way to really get to know people, have some structured questions, and get to know them on a different way. So if you don't have anything to talk about, bring the gains exchange. Plan ahead with questions. We had a list of questions last week that you can bring and talk to them about. Just start running through those questions. Come up with your own questions. Get a book on networking or how to talk to strangers. It'll give you lots of questions to talk about and ideas. Or bring a third person. Sometimes that third person can act as a buffer, an intermediary. These two may be having a conversation of something that, oh yeah, I did that once. Oh, I really like it. Well, turns out it may be your best hobby ever. So bring that third person to help change that conversation and bring it a little different way. Finding common ground isn't always easy. So be aware of that. It's going to take some time to find common ground. But the more one-to-ones you do, you can find that common ground, and the next one's going to be even easier. It wasn't productive. So set goals for the meeting. I mean, know why you're going and having a one-to-one with that person. If you want to increase your visibility, do you want to increase your credibility? Do you want to find out about their business? Do you know all about their business and want to learn about their family? But set some goals for that meeting. Like sometimes I'll have a meeting and I have a very specific reason for going to talk to that person, and I'm directing it because I want information that that person has. So set goals for the meeting. And again, plan ahead with questions. If you show up with nothing to talk about, it's not going to be productive, and that's on you. It's not on the other person. It's on you as much as it is on them. So plan ahead. Your one-to-one is only as effective as you are. It didn't feel like a one-to-one. You meet Brad and I met in the parking lot at Best Buy this morning. I saw him, I stopped by, we talked for 10 minutes. It wasn't a one-to-one, but we could have turned it into a one-to-one, except he had to go in and buy stuff. We'd sat there for another 15, 20 minutes. We could have called it a one-to-one. But I got this advice from Debbie last year. She said this: if it just take a little bit more time, sit down with the person and say, hey, you got a few more minutes where we can turn this into a real one-to-one? So if you don't feel like comfortable calling it a one-to-one, just ask them. Bring that friction in there and say, do you have some more time? And let's talk about business, let's talk about B&I, and make it a real one-to-one. And then you can discuss either business or B&I. But do you have a little more time to turn this into a real one-to-one? And then finally, I don't have the time. This is one that I struggle with as my business goes up and down. I know there's a lot of other people in here with cyclical businesses that as we go up and down, we get busy, we do fewer one-to-ones. But make the time. I mean, I hate to say it, but that's what we have to do. We all can manage to get here every Tuesday. Everyone needs to eat lunch. So set a time. Hey, let's have a quick 30-minute lunch meeting. I eat at my desk or while I'm driving, but I can stop and have lunch somewhere. Schedule before or after B&I. Everyone's here already. Take 30 minutes before, 30 minutes after. Or do a group one-to-one. Get 3 or 4 people together. You can have that buffering. You can get a lot of questions answered. Somebody's going to ask something different. You can get a lot of one-to-ones in. But there's things you can do to where you get more than just a one-to-one. Or schedule it a week in advance. If you come to me and ask for a one-to-one tomorrow or this week, it's probably not going to happen. If you come to me and ask for one a week in advance, I'm all over it because my schedule's not filled until 3 days in advance. And so I know that about myself. I'll schedule it a week in advance, and that's why. Because it's scheduled, I can't change it. But we just have to make the time because the one-to-ones are extremely important. So these small meetings are important, and with each referral, you're giving away a little bit of your reputation, and trust is crucial. This is from last week. And I think it's very important, which is why I'm bringing it up again. The one-to-one process allows members to deepen their mutual knowledge and develop better relationships with each other. So what are your barriers to effective one-to-ones? These are the things that I've heard and the people have told me. So I know there's more out there. I'd love to hear from you guys, or I'd love to hear your suggestions about how you can overcome some of these barriers.
Frustrating, you know, if you move things around and then all of a sudden you're ready and they're like, oh, can't come. So
yeah, canceling at the last minute. That's a hard one. And if you do it very much, you're going to get that reputation and people are going to stop doing one-to-ones. I know I've had to cancel more than one at the last minute, and I feel really bad. I think Paul was unfortunately on the other end of that. I canceled him, he canceled me, I canceled back. We finally got together. And then I had a giant shipment coming in that was supposed to be a day later.
You had somewhere to be right after.
I know. That was. I still feel bad about that one-to-one. It was a bad situation. But yeah, don't cancel on people unless it's an emergency, unless you absolutely have to. And the more advance notice you can give them, the better off it's going to be. But then try to reschedule it so they know it's not you, not the person you're trying to meet with. But try to reschedule it. Suggest an alternative time that fits maybe within their schedule if you're the one that had to cancel it. So, Any other barriers people coming up with or suggestions on how to address some of these barriers? No? And finally, I just enjoy how Brad and I are both depicted by the group here.
I don't even know what that means.
Brad's flinging the money on the one-to-ones.
That's the best. I saw that on the newsletter a couple weeks ago.